Welcome, future clinical researchers, to this explainer. If you're a fresher stepping into the high-stakes, incredibly rewarding world of clinical research, well, you're in the exact right place. Today, we're talking about documentation. Now, I know, paperwork might not sound like the most thrilling topic right off the bat, but here's the absolute secret to this entire industry. Documentation, it's literally the unalterable DNA of a clinical trial. It's the core of how we bring life-saving drugs to market safely. Seriously, master the documents and you master the trial. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. Think of this as your ultimate survival guide to mastering ICH-GCP standards. We've got the clinical trial toolkit. Before the trial begins, during clinical conduct, after trial completion, data integrity and Alcoa Plus, and finally, we'll wrap up with 4 fresher interview questions. All right, Section 1, the clinical trial toolkit. Before we even look at specific forms, we really need to understand the foundational philosophy of why we even have all this paperwork. According to the ICH-GCP E6 Revision 2, Section 8, essential documents are those, and I quote, which individually and collectively permit evaluation of the conduct of a study and the quality of the data produced. So what does this actually mean? It means this isn't just bureaucratic red tape. This is the law of the land. In clinical research, there's a very famous saying you're going to hear a lot. If it isn't documented, it simply didn't happen. These files are basically a time machine. They're the only way an auditor can travel back in time and prove, without a doubt, that a trial was run correctly. So every single signature, every date, and every log you file serves 5 core purposes. First up, regulatory compliance with good clinical practice. Second, subject protection, proving that human rights and well-being were actually protected. Third, audit and inspection readiness for the trial master file. Fourth, data integrity, making sure those results are actually credible. And finally, trial management. When an inspector walks into your site, these documents, they're the primary evidence they're going to review. Moving right along to Section 2, before the trial begins. To keep these massive amounts of paperwork logical, we can visually map the lifespan of a trial into 3 very distinct phases: before the trial commences, during clinical conduct, and after completion. Right now, let's focus on that first block. Listen, before a single patient is ever enrolled, you absolutely must secure these specific documents to prove your site is qualified and safe. It's non-negotiable. You need the Investigator's brochure, which holds all the scientific info on the product. You need the finalized, signed protocol. You need formal approvals from your IRB or ethics committee. You've got to prove your doctors are actually qualified by collecting their signed CVs and licenses. And of course, you need your regulatory authorizations and lab documentation in place. This is your foundation. Without these, no way, the trial literally cannot start legally. Which brings us to Section 3, during clinical conduct. Once the trial gets the green light, we hit the active operational phase, where the bulk of daily documentation is generated. And this brilliantly illustrates how we categorize that daily chaos to maintain strict order. You've got regulatory files for ongoing approvals, investigator files like the all-important delegation of authority log, product files tracking drug shipments and temperature logs. Then there's subject and data files. This is huge. It's where your signed informed consent forms and case report forms live. You also have safety reporting for any serious adverse events. And finally, monitoring records from your site visits. Categorizing documents like this ensures that when you're in the thick of it and need a specific file fast, you know exactly which bucket to pull from. Next up, Section 4, after trial completion. During the strict wrap-up phase, we need to secure the final data and formally close the study. You're going to be gathering the final investigational product accountability logs. This proves exactly what happened to every single pill or vial. You'll finalize the subject identification code list. You'll collect the audit and closeout reports, treatment decoding documents, and ultimately the final clinical study report. These final wrap-up documents are absolutely crucial. They're what you show to regulatory authorities to prove that the trial concluded ethically and that literally nothing was left unaccounted for. All right, Section 5, data integrity and ALCO+. Now that we've mapped out that chronological journey, we have to talk about the gold standard of data quality. Honestly, Alcoa Plus is probably the most important framework you will ever learn as a fresher. It defines precisely what makes trial data credible and reproducible worldwide. So, what does it stand for? Attributable. Who did it? Legible. Can I read it? Contemporaneous. Was it recorded exactly when it happened? Original. Is this the very first record? And accurate. Is it correct? The plus stands for complete, consistent, enduring, and available. So the crucial point here is, If your documentation doesn't meet every single one of these criteria, your data is basically useless. So, how exactly do we put Alcoa Plus into daily action? Well, through some very strict operational best practices. First, timely updates. File as you go. Do not let that paperwork pile up. Second, ensure all training and delegation is documented before anyone performs a task. Third, use risk-based quality control to catch deviations early on. Fourth, fiercely protect patient privacy and security by redacting identifiers. And fifth, record retention. This one's huge. You must retain these essential documents for a minimum of 2 years after the last marketing approval, and honestly, sometimes local laws or sponsor contracts require even longer. You have to hold on to them tightly.
And finally, Section 6, 4 fresher interview questions.
All right, time to put your knowledge to the test. Let's ramp up the energy here. Imagine you're sitting across from a hiring manager for your absolute dream clinical research role. They lean in and ask, what is the primary core purpose of essential documents? What are you going to say? Boom, you deliver this answer swiftly and confidently. To validate trial integrity, protect subject safety, and serve as the primary evidence during audits. Nailing this shows them you understand that daily paperwork isn't just some chore, it is a direct, unbreakable line to overall patient safety. Okay, next question. The manager sets up a highly practical scenario. Can you name 3 critical documents required before a trial begins? Draw your mind back to that chronological setup phase we mapped out earlier. If you remembered these, huge congratulations. You tell them the investigator's brochure, the signed protocol and its amendments, and the IRB or Ethics Committee approvals. Mentioning these 3 shows you know exactly what the absolute non-negotiables are for site initiation. Moving to question 3. They're definitely going to test you on the gold standard here. What does the ALCOA Plus acronym stand for regarding data integrity? You knew this was coming, right? It's the most famous acronym in the entire industry. You run through these with a rapid-fire cadence. Attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. Plus complete, consistent, enduring, and available. Rattling that off proves to the hiring manager that this framework is going to be the strict backbone of your daily tasks. All right, final question, question 4. This is a specific regulatory test. They ask, how long must essential trial documents be retained? They're checking your knowledge of that after completion phase and those strict record retention policies. You deliver the precise timeline without a second of hesitation. For at least 2 years after the last marketing approval, or potentially longer depending on local laws and sponsor contracts. This shows you understand that compliance means holding on to the trial's DNA long after the actual study ends. By understanding the core purpose, the chronological phases, and the unbreakable rules of Alcoa Plus, you aren't just looking at a stack of paper anymore. You're looking at the hard proof of medical advancement. So I'll leave you with this. Are you ready to be the guardian of trial integrity? Trust in your training and step confidently into your clinical research career. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.